Well, it's Sunday afternoon again, and we've got a few seeds that I'm going to go through because I want to start more container vegetables. A lot of what we actually did in that container garden have now been exhausted. So I want to replace them as well as get things growing on benches in containers in a greenhouse as well. And I'm just going to use little containers like this, plenty of holes at the bottom. We're also using compost that we've used before, because I don't like to get to end of season and start buying fresh bags of compost when I've got plenty of containers that's been emptied. So I can use that compost again by just amending it with a bit of fertiliser, and it saves a bit of money. So we always start off with this rough stuff that we save after we sieve the compost. We basically just use that to line bottom at containers. Because it's so lumpy, it helps with drainage as well and cuts down on the amount of good compost that we're using. So we're about a quarter fill with this stuff, because we're planting in little containers, so the vegetables that we're planting are actually quite shallow rooted. And that's plenty in there. And then we'll use fish blood and bone to amend it. Get some nutrients back in this already spent compost. And then we just top it off with finer sieved compost. Then I just like to level it out a little bit, firming it down slightly at the same time. Then I'm going to give it a really good watering, because that'll keep the seeds on the compost where I put them. So I'm going to sow a fresh batch of spinach, because a lot of the spinach that was growing a few weeks ago went to seed, it bolted, went into flower because of that extreme heat that we had. And spinach is your first vegetable that will bolt if it gets too hot. But we can keep sowing spinach right up until November. And we're just going to broadcast these seeds over the top. We're going to like overseed it, like multi-sowing. And then we've got two choices really. We can either let this grow as a big bunch of spinach in this container, or we could separate a few single plants out and pot them on. But we'll decide that when we get to it. Which is the great thing about multi-sowing. Just in case a few seeds don't germinate, you're guaranteed that some are. So you're not going to waste valuable time, especially at this time of year, waiting for seeds to germinate. And then I just lightly cover it with more compost using a colander, because I don't want the seeds getting too deeply buried. Because we're in August now, we want things to germinate and come out of the compost as quick as possible and get them on the way. So for me, this offers a lot more control of exactly how deep these seeds are getting buried. And it's especially important when you come to things like lettuce and carrots, because they're so tiny. So that didn't take long, and everything is very lightly covered. So now we'll just water them in. And that's your spinach planter all set up. You could sow them into containers as small as this, but then you need to be pricking out the little seedlings and moving them on before the root system completely chokes every plant inside this container. And then you move them on into individual little cells just to grow them a little bit bigger. So they end up like this. So you've now got a good amount of healthy lettuce plants in there. And then you can move those on into something like this to carry on growing right up until you're ready to harvest. So the same thing again, bit of rough stuff in bottom. A little bit of feed just to give these plants a boost of nutrients. And then just top it off with sieved compost. Just give that a bang. That'll settle that compost down a little for you. And then again, I just like to level it out a bit. And then we'll wet this compost as well, because it'll be easier to get the little seedlings in. So then all you need to do is transplant your lettuce seedlings into the final position. And they'll come out quite easily. And you've got nice healthy little plants there. So you just need to make a nice deep hole and pop that seedling in. Push it down and firm around edges. If you see any yellowing leaves on your seedlings when you transplant, you might as well take them off. They're not going to do any good to that plant. Then we just need to do the same with the next one. These are called little gem, and they're more of a romaine lettuce, so they grow upwards more than they do outwards. So if you're getting one that forms a heart, maybe just a couple would be enough in this container. And again, really nice little seedlings. So I think I'm going to go with 3 in this container, because they're not a bad size plant. Push them in deep, firm them down, make sure they're nice and upright when you transplant your seedlings. And there you go. 3 lettuces that will happily grow to full size in a container like this using amended old compost. So once you start harvesting these, the ones that you just seeded will be all coming up, ready to prick out, move on and transplant. And that way you can keep yourself with a constant supply of spinach and lettuce all the way through the year. And all done with minimum space and at minimum cost. And the whole point of doing what we're doing with these containers is that as we start and approach autumn, we're going to be filling this greenhouse out with all different types of vegetables in containers. We're going to insulate the old greenhouse with bubble wrap. I'm going to insulate the floor around the edges with bubble wrap and then bury it to try and trap as much warmth as I possibly can in here. And by the time we get round to doing that, all these plants will have gone, and we'll just completely bench it all the way round and try and get as much stuff growing in here as we possibly can, while at the same time making plans for overwintering things that we've got growing right now, like these peppers. And if you're interested in seeing what we do sow and grow as we move to the back end of summer and into the colder part of the year, then just hit that subscribe button, press that notifications bell, and we'll see you all there. You all take care. Thank you for watching.